I know what it's teaching them as people. Mm-hmm. And that's why I love the sport. And that's why I'm glad that I'm in the sport. I never really pushed them to. They were around it. They started a little bit later, and then, they've taken hold of it. And now it's like I said, and I'm going to hold them to those things. That's what, and I just got to keep grading them on those things, because I feel like, they'll be quality teammates. They'll be quality people. We're still going to win a hell of a lot of matches. I'm not going to try to ever lose sight of those other things first. And if I do, then, I'll have some people around me that I think will tell me, hey, you're losing sight of this. Like, your relationship with your son is not worth a wrestling match.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestled, because if you wrestled, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling.
I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
If I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if they gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wrestling Changed My Life podcast. This is your host, Ryan Warner, coming to you from Chicago, IL. Fantastic episode today with the head coach at UNI, the great Doug Schwab, NCAA champion for the University of Iowa, 2008 Olympian. He's been leading the Panthers since 2014. It was great to have Coach Schwab on the podcast. Doug has been on before, episodes 102 and 296, and I hope you enjoy this episode, folks. Fan of the week goes to a wrestling shoe collector fanatic, Jeff Varney, out of Ohio. You've never seen someone with a better collection of wrestling shoes than our friend Jeff. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast and for all the support over the years. We greatly appreciate it. And without further ado, folks, let's give it up for the great Doug Schwab. If you're running a wrestling club and you're looking to supplement your existing fundraising efforts, please consider using CauseMatch. CauseMatch is a peer-to-peer online crowdfunding campaign, and past results show that this type of a campaign using CauseMatch will help you raise 6 times more than traditional events. And the best part is that it won't cost you an additional 30-40% in overhead. You don't have to change a thing in your current fundraising plans. CauseMatch is just meant to help supplement your existing efforts. Go to causematch.com/wrestling to schedule a 20-minute Zoom call and see if there's an opportunity to grow your fundraising. That's causematch.com/wrestling. Doug Schwab, back on the podcast, third time on the show. How you doing this morning, Coach?
I'm doing well, man. Just got a little work in this morning. Got guys trying to get better, and I guess it's always fun, man. We talk about progress and finding the process, and we got a lot of guys that are doing it. It's fun to watch these guys grow, man. That's why we coach.
Yeah, it's man, what you guys have been building, and I can't believe it's your 14th season as a head coach at UNI. Does it seem like 14 years?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it does, but like I tell the guys, man, time is always moving. And you got to be able to move with it, and whatever situation happens, whatever gets thrown at you, we got opportunities to be able to use those and grow and improve. But yeah, I mean, it's went really fast, man. I'm incredibly proud of what we've built, and what to me our program stands for, around the country. Mm-hmm. And that's something that takes some time to build, but man, I couldn't be prouder of the program, and I feel like the reputation that it has.
It's an amazing reputation. I can't think of anyone better to lead the program. I hope you never retire from UNI. It's awesome to see you there. And man, it's been such a busy summer. First off, congrats to your son on winning Fargo. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, man. I've been able to be part of quite a few things in in wrestling, but there's nothing like someone else winning, and then you're watching your son do it is pretty damn cool. When he came off the stand, I told him a couple things. I told him he's got to mow the lawn.
You told him what now?
I said you still got to mow the lawn, so it doesn't and another thing is that you win something, it's great and you're proud of them, but it doesn't make you better than someone. You know what I mean? I mean, so we got to stay incredibly humble and grateful for all the opportunities that we get. And, in those moments, man, like I said, I was so proud of him, and it was so cool to see the look on his face and just that, you're like, man, I realized one of my goals and dreams, and I just keep reminding him, how did you get there? And then that's what you got to continue to do and work and continue to believe in that work. And he's got a lot of evidence that what he's doing is working really well. And they've got a great club too. Cruz and Hodges. They do a fantastic job at Immortal, man, playing the long game for these guys. And then they got some other guys with Lujan and Hochlag around and helping. Darren, guys that wrestled for me, but man, they've put one of the better clubs in the country together, and couldn't be prouder of that.
So Cruz, our house is running that, the Immortal Club.
Yeah, yep. He runs it. He runs it, and then Jake Hodges actually just went down to Des Moines area, went down to Simpson, and they're starting one down there.
The clubs in Iowa are crazy right now. You got Big Game, you got Seed Bolt, you got this one. Like, those are legit.
No, well, we're fortunate. We're fortunate in the state to have wrestling be important here and have people like that are giving back. I think we were probably a little bit slow to get going in the club game, but now, like I said, you have three great clubs, and there's a lot of other there's a lot of others out there that are doing a great job too. But man, those guys are really sticking out.
Yeah, it's always every time I talk about the academies, like the Askrens, the Pinnacles, the Izzy Styles, they're amazing. But then you think about like just the normal coach who's like not even making money doing a youth club coach, and those guys are out there too, and that's hard work, because those athletes aren't the diehards, right? It's easy to coach the diehards, but coaching the average wrestler, we can't forget about those coaches too.
No, there's so many guys that are investing in these guys' lives, right? It's not about them always winning wrestling matches, and I was going with a long game, and they're playing the long game and getting these guys to really buy into themselves and give them some self-worth. Maybe for some kids, you got to beat the streets. You're just trying to get these guys off the streets and give them something positive to be around, something to put their time and effort into, and something that they have control of, right? There's a lot of things that are outside of their control. And, on the wrestling mat, hopefully, even though trying to control another human that's across from me is not easy, but you can certainly control your preparation and in just learning from these experiences, right? That's why we do it. And I said, to say that, that club, it's more important what those guys are doing as opposed to, the guy that's starting the Pee Wee. I think they're all critical to the sport and advancing the sport and to making better humans.
And your son, who just won, Hayden or Hendricks?
Hayden. Yep,
Hayden. Okay. So what, is he in high school or going into high school?
Yeah, he'll be a freshman this year. Yeah, he took a gap year last year, was homeschooled, and he's really small for his weight, and it was one of those things where once Hayden, once he gets on something, he's on it. And I made sure that he's like, okay, you want to do this? And then it was about 6 months later when we made the decision, because he just stayed on. I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I'm like, well, why do you want to do it? And and then he went and he made it very clear to me that he has some goals that he has in mind and that he wants to accomplish, and that this would help that. And then as a dad, you're like, okay, I'm on board, buddy. Let's make this happen. And he got some great opportunities this last year to go some places and train and be with some people and be around some families, that, there's some incredible families and people within the sport. And I know a lot of them, and, I was really grateful for a few of those to take him in and get some time around them and their families. And, that's what Hendricks is going to do this year too. He came this summer and was like, I want to do it. I saw the growth that Hayden had with it, and he's like, I want to do it too. And I know that's kind of out there a little bit now. Some people, I don't know about boohoo or like, that's not fair. This kid's taking another year. They're still going to be the same age really as these other kids when they're seniors.
Yeah.
And we get another year with them at home. And, we did our research as far as I talked to a lot of parents that had their kids and for another year, and you have another year at home. Just the growth that they have in maturing as people too. It's everyone's like, well, it's just about wrestling. Well, that's not the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
There's a piece of that, but that they're going to be more developed as a person. That's worth it.
Well, I think
and
it's great. I mean, they've been doing that in Illinois for a long time. Tony Ramos did that. Austin Gomez did that because especially with boys, like I graduated 17. Boys are immature. Like if I had an extra year, like girls, I think do mature. I think it's maybe even science. Like they mature much faster. And yeah, if you're undersized and you're young, man, I really hope, I think it's a great thing. And I hope that, if I have kids, it would do that same path. But I remember you guys have been doing that for a long time. And I think it pays off big time. Yeah. And like
I said, it was something that came from them. They wanted to do it because I'm not like, hey, you have to stay back. And then they're fighting. It's like, here's your wishes. And then I made them really think it through. Okay, this is what you want to do. Well, then tell me why you want to do it. And then, then you can get behind it. I just want these guys to be thoughtful. And then when they make their decision, there's no looking back.
And so we can't forget to mention, so going to Don Bosco, one of the great Iowa powerhouses.
Yeah.
Your older brother may be one of the best Iowa high school wrestlers of all time, Mark Schwab, 4-time state champ. So there's a legacy there, and it's exciting. And how have you noticed, like your involvement? Are you dad? Are you coach? How does that work? Probably a little bit of both.
Oh man, I'm trying to figure that out still. I feel very fortunate with the coaches that they have, at Immortal that. I can be dad. I mean, I've kind of always tried to make a little bit of separation because I want to be dad. But me and Allison, we sat down when the boys started to wrestle when they were young, and there were some things that we told them. Here's what we're going to grade you on. We're going to grade you on your effort, your composure, your focus, your coachability. How you listen to your coach, how you respond to them, what kind of teammate you are. Those are the things that we're going to grade you on. We're not going to grade you on if you win or lose the match.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna look at those other things that I think you have total control of. If we feel like your effort isn't good, that's really the only time I've ever got upset at my son in a match. I know that there was more effort there, and it was like, hey, I know that you're capable of much more, and there's a standard I think that you have to hold yourself to. But if they lose a match. They've made it clear to me what their goals are, and then I'll try to hold them to those, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of what it's going to take, but, I feel like I'm being able to be dad. That's the way I want it. I got to be dad first.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know a little bit about wrestling too, but, I don't want that to get in the way of our relationship ever. I think if anything, it should enhance, me being in the corner for him at Fargo. That was just an incredible experience. I can't tell you the joy of watching my sons compete and then seeing their composure and focus. And even when they lose and then they come back, I know what it's teaching them as people. Mm-hmm. And that's why I love the sport. And that's why I'm glad that I'm in the sport. I never really pushed them to. They were around it. They started a little bit later, and then, they've taken hold of it. And now it's like I said, and I'm going to hold them to those things. That's what. And I just got to keep grading them on those things because I feel like, they'll be quality teammates. They'll be quality people. We're still going to win a hell of a lot of matches.
Mm-hmm.
But that's never going to be, I'm not going to try to ever lose sight of those other things first. And if I do, then, I'll have some people around me that I think will tell me, hey, you're losing sight of this. Like your relationship with your son is not worth a wrestling match, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And we're going to cut that video up and post it because that's for any walk of life, right? You can control those things, whether it's business, being a teacher, whatever. You can control those things. You're going to be in a better spot. What about your folks? Were your folks involved at all? Were they like driving you hard, or was it more like your brothers?
No, not at all. Um, there's a big age gap between me and my brothers. So really, I watched their example. You said, you talk about my brother and, Mark won everything under the sun. And I mean, it was like he was Superman. I mean, he's winning everything. And smashing guys too. I mean, it wasn't like it was even close. I mean, he was smashing everybody, and he places as a true freshman, and, he's number 2 on Olympic ladder. And, obviously all those things, happened with his knee. But I just kind of watched their example, and I can tell you both my parents, they never pushed. They gave me opportunities and they held me to a standard. But I mean, as far as like, hey, you have to do this, it was always, I wanted to do it, okay, I want to do this. Oh, you don't want to go this weekend? Fine. You don't want to go to this tournament? Okay. If you want to, we'll take you, but we're not gonna push and make you do it. I don't know. That's who they were, man. It was just support. It was support and love. I mean, I'm trying to think about my mom. I think one time I remember in high school, I think it was one night, because I pretty much ran every day during high school. And I think it started to get later at night one time. And I remember her like, hey, you going to run today? That's about the only time I ever remember her, like, even when I made my college decision, it was like, hey, are you sure? It wasn't like, I mean, they loved the support and the decisions we made. They were going to back them.
Yeah. No, it's I remember you telling that story before. I think it maybe was even like Christmas or something, but like your brother. So like when Mark was going on his run, and when you talk about he won everything, literally everything. I mean, like, yeah. I think about great high school Iowa careers. I think Dan Knight, I'm thinking back in the older years, I'm thinking Mark Schwab, obviously. So, I mean, seeing that, and like you guys at that point, he was wrestling. What was the Iowa High School State Tournament? Was it the barn before the new arena?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been pretty special.
It was. These young kids don't know. They know Wells Fargo, and they're like, oh, there's nothing like it. I said, if you would have been at Vets in the barn, and you got to walk around the bottom and got to watch, kind of, it's almost like ants just following the trail. I mean, when there was a big match, you would just, everyone converge there, and you could get Matt's side, and then they would move kind of wherever, but the energy in there was like nothing else. And I remember watching my brother win his 4th state title there, and then you're like, man, at some point I'm going to be here. It took me a lot longer to win one than I wanted, but that was, to me, especially with the separation that we had. I don't know if I certainly probably could have felt a lot more pressure. I think I lose my 1st or 2nd match in high school, and I remember one of the dads came up and was like, hey, the pressure's off. You already got as many losses as your brother, and it's the 2nd match. Like,
so he literally never lost.
He
never lost in high
Mark
school.
Lost one match. He lost one match.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He lost one match, and then smashed everybody else. I mean, just
God.
I would imagine his bonus rate was incredibly high.
And did you wrestle at junior nationals when you were coming up through?
Just my senior year. Senior year, I placed 6th that year. I tore my shoulder my sophomore year, and didn't get to wrestle that year. And then I had surgery at the end of the next year. So, I missed out on those opportunities. Heck, I'll tell you, so the Fargo bracket that we had, so this is crazy. Mike Zadek won. So Mike Zadek won it. He wrestled Leitner in the finals. Freyer was in that bracket, and I was in that bracket. And there was a handful of other guys, but I'm saying that was those 4 dudes all placed in the top 8 in that tournament, which was, looking back, that's a pretty damn good bracket.
Crazy bracket. And speaking of some of the guys you used to scrap with, I just had Mark Engel on. He was a Fargo. It wasn't. I don't know if it was Fargo back then, but he was what they would call Fargo king. Winning crazy titles. Do you remember him back in the day?
Yeah, I remember Mark Engel, wrestling him a few times. And I want to say my sophomore year, well, him and Chris Marshall, they were teammates. And then Marshall left, and I think everyone was hoping that those 2 guys were going to be in the finals against each other. And then me and Leitner had some different plans.
Yeah.
But I wrestled him a few times in college, and he was a really good wrestler. He had a really good career.
Yeah. And he, I just had on, it's actually just kind of coincidence. Bunch of guys from your era. I had Engel on, and he was, talking about some of his Fargo stuff. And then Teague Moore was just on, and he talks about freshman year. I don't even think he made it to Pennsylvania State. Went to Fargo, junior nationals and didn't place. And he sees Mark Engel win it, and that's like his high school buddy, his teammate, or local friend. And he's like, well, why can't I do that? And then he really turned up the gas. And obviously, we all know the great career he had. So I love that era though that you came up in. You mentioned Leitner, Freyer, and Zadok, of course. And man, those are household names.
Yeah, I've listened to Mike's podcast you had on maybe about a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, some of the stuff that he's doing with that community too. I mean, Mike's awesome, man. We believe me, man. We were this when we were in college and beyond. But man, we're great friends now, and I love that dude. Yeah.
He's awesome. That podcast was so many people reached out because, like, a lot of the guys who go through that program, you don't really know what kind of person they are. And I think Metcalf's kind of the same way. You don't really know what they're like. And then you talk to them, they're like, oh, these are nice guys. They're normal dudes. Mike Zadok was like the epitome of that. Like, I was so nervous for that because you see the season and how serious they are. And man, so it was great to have him on. And yeah, I get chills even thinking about how he took his dad's building down hand by hand. He's rebuilding it. Yep. He's doing it all just because he loves wrestling. Like, man, that guy is awesome. Love that conversation.
Yeah. And, honor his family, honor his dad too, and they keep that legacy going too.
Yeah.
Those are things that are really important to him. And, you get that a little bit, I mean, guys, they're robots or this or that, we're intense competitors, and Mike's got a great personality. I mean, talk about a guy that can have a conversation with anybody, I mean, that's why people have to get behind a little bit of getting to know people. That's why, the old don't judge a book by its cover, get to know someone. That's why I try not to judge anyone or anything, because you never know what's going on in their life. But when you get to know these guys, you're like, holy cow, man, this guy's interesting. I mean, holy cow, the things that he's doing.
Yeah.
And, we get kind of caught into that persona of who they see on the mat.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're all so much more than that. And I think you get to realize that. And I'm grateful that you got this podcast to give us the opportunity, but also give people the opportunity to understand that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's an honor you guys come on here and talk, and it's so fun because, like, I tell some of my friends who are not wrestling people, it's like, man, growing up, I would have talked to these guys. I would have been excited just to talk to one of them. And the fact that we get to do it all the time and that people enjoy listening, it's been such a cool project. And yeah, coming up on 5 years this October, so it's been awesome. And I know we've been involved in some projects. The Tony Davis stuff was awesome, and you think about the stuff now, Rob Cole going to UNC. I immediately thought of a story he told me. And for folks who don't know, Rob's father, a legend, war hero, UNI legend, Olympic champ, Olympian. I can't remember.
He was Olympian. Yep, Olympian. Yep.
Okay.
He was a couple time OW for the NCAA tournament. In our wrestling room's named after him. The wrestling room that we have, Sandy Stevens, her husband wrestled at UNI, and there, she said he was like a dad. It wasn't like he was coach. He was a dad to those guys. So that was one of the things that she was like, I want to name it after him. And
wow.
I think we've done a pretty dang good job of passing it along to our guys. Of trying to really build stronger men too.
Absolutely. And what I was thinking with Coach Cole going to UNC is he told me a time, when he was like a freshman, maybe they wrestled at UNI and he got rode out, and his dad comes to him afterwards. He's like, yeah, I don't care if you win or lose, but he's like, I don't want to see any more of that shit where you get rode. And that was like a turning point for him. And he said after that, to this day, he believes getting out from bottom is pure mentality, like throwing elbows, whatever. But like, you just got to grit your teeth and like, there's no one going to freaking ride me. And that was the story that happened to him at the West Gym. Imagine his dad is who he is, and you're at the West Gym, you get rode out in the third period. What could be worse? It'd probably be like your son getting rode out at like Carver or something. It'd be horrible for him.
Yeah.
Not so much for the dad, but so Coach Cole going to UNC, I gotta think we gotta get some UNI UNC action going in the years to come here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, one thing, we try to wrestle, and we do wrestle a heck of a schedule. I mean, we take pretty much anybody that will, and we can make it work within our schedule. But yeah, I'd love to have him back. We got to have him here a few years ago when he was still at Cornell, and and got to show him the room and give him something, from that, and really honor his dad. I mean, because you have to keep your history alive and well, and the only way that you can do that is you got to keep it active. You got to keep bringing it back up, and you got to thank those that have come before you. We really impart that on our guys, that's a critical piece, because we're not here and where we're at without everybody that came before us.
Oh, 100%. And it's like, you look at the great history of UNI, it's like the program's in such a good place now, and you're wearing the shirt West Gymnasium, and I know the dual meets no longer happen at West Gym, which, I'm a bit of I'm an outcast here. Like I know, like, for example, you guys love the West Gym, but man, I think if we can pack the McLeod Center, even better. Same with Penn State. I know they love Rec Hall. Man, if we can sell out 17,000, why aren't we doing it? Like, so yeah. I'm sad to see West Gym go, but I'm pumped that McLeod Center is here to stay. My question though is the wrestling room gonna, like, what's going on with the wrestling room? Is that gonna change? Because is West Gym gonna go away, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're in that process right now.
Okay.
We're moved out of there right now. There's it's a pretty dang old building, and there's some things that don't feel very comfortable with it, with the structure wise. So we're moved out of there right now. We're at a mat club training. We're working on our plans of what the future, West Gym is going to be for us. West Gym's getting ushered out, and it's a sad day because there's so much history in that building. But I can tell you what I've told our guys, and there's a few things. Home is where we are. It's not, home is where we're going to make it. There's so much history from that, but we take that history along with us. It's not just stuck in those walls. Those walls can find it, and we put it up on the walls. We're going to bring it with us, and we're going to make new history. I mean, we have to make do with where we're at with what we have as best as we can, and that's what we're trying to do in this situation. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of trying to figure out, what our plan is. We're working on it right now, but for us, time's moving, and we still have to continue to move forward. And fortunate to have the USA Mat Club and the Kelly family that are allowing us to be able to work out in there right now.
Yeah,
and we're going to expand that place, and when it all gets done, we'll have as much space from a we'll have as much mat space as we had at the West Gym. We'll have some other things, and then as we work into it, we'll get all those other plans in place. But I can tell you what I'm firmly focused on is what I can control.
That's it.
And there's some pieces outside of that we can't. But I'm still going to honor this building. I mean, I'm still taking it with me wherever I go, and our guys still will too. I'll illustrate my point that it's the people. And it always will be, Ryan. We've talked about it. I've never been any different that, we could build $100 million facility. Does that mean that means we're going to win? Does that mean that we're going to get us through hard times? Absolutely not. It's going to be the people. The people that we surround ourselves with is going to be the most important and valuable ingredient. Now, do we have to have investment from up top? Absolutely. Am I happy that we're in the situation that we're in right now? Absolutely not. But I'm also going to make the best of the situation, because you don't have any other choice. And then you have to model and lead that. And our guys they've, I would say, fall right in line, but they're like, okay, coach, trust you. Let's go back and get to work. Because the one thing I know is I think, 21, 22, 23, and, March, that's still going to be the national tournament. That's happening no matter what.
That's it. And the guys in your room, you got some guys who were ready to go. I mean, obviously the great Parker Kaizen, we're going to talk about him. What a stud. Yeah. But talk a little bit about Volker and the summer he had. Like, what was it like going over to Jordan and watching him compete?
Yeah, I mean, you just get reminded of, trying to be the highest level, that there's levels to all this, right? I hadn't been around as much Greco. But yeah, he had a great summer. He went and won the US Open. He went and won the trials. He won Pan Am games. And then, he had a hell of a tournament over there. Got beat by the guys that got first and second last year, from Iran. And actually, he
Armenia?
lost to two dudes. in Armenia. You know, also the two guys that were in the finals last year.
Wow.
And those guys have placed again this year. So, you know, he's right there, but like with everything, there's levels, and he felt a few things that he hadn't felt before with those guys. And you even saw that he started to make adjustments throughout the match. And it just, sometimes making those real-time adjustments can be tough. And that's why, you know, we just got to continue to training up our level and get him around, you know, even higher level Greco. But he did a great job preparing this summer. Dylan Carew, who was his club coach, had a big game, put a lot of time into him. But yeah, getting to go over there and I don't know, when you travel the world, and you've got to travel the world through the sport, you know, you get to see so many things, and you're always grateful to come home. But I mean, like I told him, man, me and Dylan both were like, hey, thank you so much for making the team. We're proud of you, but also look at the opportunity I was able to get. You know, I was able to go over to Jordan. I was able to go see the baptism spot of Jesus. I was able to dip my feet in the Jordan River. You know, you're able to float in the Red Sea. You know, and those things. You know, the wrestling. I mean, the wrestling got me to be able to do those things and see the world, and it just expands your knowledge, but also I think if anything, it just expands, you know, you being grateful for what you have, right?
Yeah.
And that, you know, that you're reminded consistently that people are people and people have certain needs. And then, you know, you need to see things with your own eyes, you know, and not through someone else's lens. And I'm grateful for that. And like I said, he had a great tournament, got beat by two really good guys. And those are guys, as he continues to work in this process, I'm sure he's going to see again. But I can tell you that the next time, you know, the gap might be bigger right now, but that's going to get close. And then I think feel like he's the trajectory that he's on and how he's going to work and how much he believes in what's going on in himself. Those things will switch. It just take a little bit of time.
Well, it's interesting you say that, like, you know, when you get up close and personal, like when I'm watching on my computer, you know, you want to hate the Iranians, you want to hate the Russians, and you get angry at them. But then when you see them in person, you're like, oh, these are just normal guys.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just, they're so good. You know, I was talking to, I don't remember who it was, one of the recent podcasts. I'm like, you look at our U17 team or U20 team and you're like, this is the best Americans for sure. And we still can't beat the Iranians. It's like, you got to tip your hat to what these guys are doing to consistently have that. And then when Russia comes back, you know, we know where we stand there. We're, you know, typically been a skosh below, but maybe we've closed the gap. And then you look at the Greco scene. Greco in other countries is as important as freestyle is. So you're getting their very best.
Yep.
Now, I think back. Go ahead, Coach.
No, good. Sorry.
I was going to say, it reminds me, though, of when you went to, you know, Baku 07. Like, was that pretty eye-opening for you, your first trip competing for Team USA at the Worlds?
Yeah, I mean, it always is. I mean, like I said, just there's levels to everything. And you get to see these guys, especially, you know, when, you know, I think year before and then, you know, an Olympic year, I mean, everyone ramps up for those. And I'm not saying that the other years, like, people are taking off, but, you know, I mean, those are kind of the building years because, you know, I mean, Olympic years they're circled for everyone's calendar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you do have to tip your cap to them. And, you know, I'm sitting back there and, you know, I'm watching these guys warm up. I'm watching the things they do because you're always trying to learn. Now, I don't think we're not going to do it exactly like they do it, but you can take pieces. You know, I think you have to make it your own in your own way. And, you know, there's differences from Americans and Russians and Iranians and in Japanese, but I think you can take pieces from all those and then you make them your own. And I think that's what's so fun about the sport. You know, we're chasing. Team USA has been doing an incredible job. I mean, they're right there at all age levels. You know, they're in the, you know, top 3, top 5 having champs. And that's the nature of trying to be the best in the world at something. Like, man, there's other people that are doing the same thing that we talk about. You know, they're getting up and they're getting up in the morning. They're running with purpose too, and they got great coaches and they believe in what's going on. And I think that's what makes it fun, though.
Oh, definitely. And you think about what you learn watching people, and you know, I saw a couple of pictures of you and Carew back in the warm up tent. I don't know about you, but like the most I ever learned as a kid, Mom took me to the 04 Olympic trials, and I snuck into the warm up area. Watching the warm ups is like a gold mine. You know, the matches are great, but watching the warm-ups, like, oh my God, like this is what they're doing. So I'm sure you saw a few things there.
Yeah, just saw really the Iranians, how they got ready, the things that they did. And it's individual a little bit, and that's what we try to tailor a little bit more to, but you start to see that they might have a little bit more of a system. And, I think that's a little bit, even Russian, they train together a little bit more. We have our RTCs where, I would say fracture is not the word, but this group kind of has their style. They have their coaches, and, they know these guys really well. And, that those things are working well. It's pretty hard to say that we're not having a whole lot of success, because we are.
Oh yeah.
If you go back to like 07, and I'll put that on me, 07, 08, no medals were coming from me. I think we had Cormier, was a bronze, and then, obviously Henry won, but we weren't winning a ton of medals. And like I said, I had an opportunity, so I put that on me as much as anybody.
Yeah.
But the levels definitely raised. The depth is raised. I just think these guys being more prepared sooner. You even talked about my sons and what they're exposed to right now, who they're exposed to, the level of coaching. I'm on my phone right now, and I can punch up anybody in the world if I want. I can watch, and I can. There's probably not a guy that I couldn't find in the world that if I wanted to watch some of their skills in wrestling. We didn't have those things, but yeah.
You talk about the skill level, and that's something that, a lot of people, I think it's a trend, like people who are older will say I wasn't as tough as when I was there, but I don't think anyone in their right mind could say that college wrestling isn't as competitive as it's ever been. Would you agree with that? Like the depth of talent?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't compare. Guys are tougher and whatever they want to say. I think that guys are much more prepared than they've ever been. I think the level of wrestling is as good as it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you also have to learn how to compete. You know what I'm saying? You can have great skills, but do you have great skills under pressure? How about when things go south for you? You get a bad call, or you lose a match, and some of these guys have never lost a match, and you just see them totally melt down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's other pieces to it. It's not just skill. Those are skills too that I think you have to try to train and prepare. And so I'll go back to my sons, and what they did in the basement, that was just getting composure.
Mm-hmm.
That was learning there's no meltdown. If there's a meltdown and you lose this, then you're going to lose control of everything. You're probably not just lose a match. You're probably going to act like a fool.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we're trying to get you back to firmly focused on what you can control in those moments. But man, there's so many good coaches out there. There's so many good clubs. You mentioned a few of them, and Straight Matter's one of my good buddies. Think about the run of kids that they've had out there, and
insane
in what they're exposed to. And Max and Ben, they do a fantastic job. They're guys. It's pretty hard to say the guys that are moving to the next level from those guys aren't having a whole lot of success. They're very prepared.
Oh yeah.
And I think every club's going to have their own philosophy and how they do things. We found, I think, a few clubs that I think match pretty well in line with kind of what our thinking is too, and what our focus is. And,
mm-hmm.
We just keep trying to, like I said, I keep saying build better humans, but I want them to become better at wrestling and their wrestling skills, and I want them to win a whole lot. But I also, when they leave 5 years from now or 10 years from now, I want them to leave as a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that doesn't happen when you get done with a wrestling career, especially if your only focus is your wins and losses.
And you talk about the Strip Matter Club and Young Guns. What
Mm-hmm.
they've done in that new facility, and the wrestlers are one thing, but man, every guy coming out of there, it's like these guys are like the nicest, most well-rounded humans. They're not like bad kids. They're like just good kids. They get good grades, and it's just it seems like there's been not that wasn't happening forever, but man, it seems like there's a huge focus on that now, and you can really tell that with the Young Guns guys.
Well, you've been around Jody, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you've been around John.
Oh yeah.
Strip Matter too. Yeah,
oh, sorry, John. No, I was thinking Jurgens, because I was thinking of
Jurgens too, but I'm saying out there,
Yeah.
John's in there all
I have
the
not
time,
met John. No.
Jody, you've been around Jody. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of leader he is. I mean, so I mean, it's not surprising. That's the lead they follow, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's awesome to see. And there's so many good clubs now. And yeah, the Askren Academy, I love their philosophy on development and loving the sport. And it's just a lot of good stuff going on right now. And I mean, no better time to hit on a Parker Kit-Kaizen, a product of the AWA Academy. He's gotten third, and second for you guys. And somehow he's only he's got 2 years left.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. The COVID year, I mean, but
yeah, he's awesome.
Talk about it.
Yeah. What's he showing you over the? I mean, I'm sure you've learned from him too. I mean, seeing that guy. And what's some of your experiences been as coaching that guy?
His willingness just to train and prepare and be coachable. To have success like he's had, but still be moldable and take direction. Because it could be very easy right now to be like, dude, I know what I'm doing. I just got third, and second. Like, I'm one of the best guys in the country. I'm number one, and he's still like it. He just wants to continue and learn and get better. And he gives back to our team so much, man. He gives back to the guys. I was in there this morning, and he's drilling with a guy a lot smaller than him. But you can just tell, like, hey, he's really trying to help bring guys along. I mean, he wants to have a great team. He wants to make the guys around him better. And I always talk about leading the way, and he leads the way in how he lives, how he trains, how he treats people. I mean, the dude does it as well as anybody. And I've really racked my brain and sat down and thought about guys that have, I've been around some guys that have put a ton of time into their wrestling, into their skill, into their craft. And he's not below 5. He's probably in the top 3 of guys I've been around. And he's, so that said to me, that says something. I mean, because I've been around some guys that have won everything. I mean, everything. And to be great at anything, there's a certain amount of time that it takes. And he's willing to do it. And then just how he does it too, though, man. He does it with a smile on his face. And I don't know, man. So fortunate to have him part of our program and to be leading that way. And heck, this year he can cement himself. He's already cemented himself as one of the greatest UNI wrestlers of all time. These next 2 years he can. I know we've had some guys that have come before him that have won a whole lot, but could be hard pressed in the last 50, 60 years to tell me anybody. And I know he doesn't want to get caught up into that, and he probably doesn't even like me saying that stuff, but it's just true and honest about what he's done so far in his career.
Well, in the modern era, I can only think of one UNI wrestler that's made 2 NCAA finals appearances, and that's the great Tony Davis. And so he definitely has a shot to do that this year. And that's probably the last thing he's thinking about. He's thinking about winning the damn thing, which is why he's so good. But you talk about, I've heard you say this in other interviews, that like you'll be on campus and like a teacher or an administrator will come up to you and like talk about they didn't even know Parker was a wrestler. That's how nice he is. And like he's not like a meathead. He's not going around like showing off his prowess. Like that's a pretty cool thing to hear about someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's very humble. He's not going to beat his chest, and we talk about that with our guys all the time. Like, dude, if you're a badass MFer, you don't have to tell people. They know, and guys, unassuming is like not assuming, and then he's a guy that like almost Clark Kent. He'll take his glasses off and then he'll spike it on his head if he had to. But I don't think you need to. I just don't. I just don't think that's. You don't have to tell anybody you're tough, man. People know, and I think if you have to tell people, then I mean the toughest SOBs I've ever been around. There's a couple that'll tell everybody that they're tough too. But for the most part, and that's fine. He's like I said, unassuming in a way, but man, when he hits the mat, when he trains, there's a lot of intention and purpose in what he does.
Yeah. When you mentioned earlier, you've been around, he's in like that top 5 of guys who dedicate their time into the sport. I'm curious, who are some others that come to mind for you as like just all consuming like that?
Oh man.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
When I first got to UNI, when I first got to UNI, not UNI, sorry, I first got down to Iowa, freshman, Tom just got done. He won in 96. Terry got back training again. I had a guy like Ironside in front of me. That man put a lot of time into his wrestling. And then you had some coaches in front of you too. I mean, I only had a year with Gable, but I mean, the time and dedication that he put in to his athletes, to his craft, always trying to learn and get better. McRae was a guy that, and those guys had some things that they had where they, were able to get away a little bit. But man, as far as time into their craft, yeah, those guys all put a ton of time in. And I had a lot of guys in front of me that did it. And to me, I just followed that lead and followed that example. Even from my brothers when I was growing up.
Yeah. Man.
So I've had that kind of all the way up, but I could compile a list. It's hard because, I've seen him from day one, so I'm kind of comparing to that. And, obviously his results speak for themselves too, so I think it's, but I've had some guys too that have dedicated everything to the sport and maybe haven't had those kind of results, but they still have reaped so many benefits and rewards. They've planted some seeds that, they're harvested now.
Oh yeah.
Beyond their wrestling.
So Terry Brands, Linka McAravey, Ironside, just a few guys. I don't know if we've ever heard of them, but I mean those are the guys. I'm kidding, of course. Those are the guys that those are like you're bumping elbows with. Those are your colleagues. Like, good God, that's crazy. And I mean, we don't even. That's not even including all the Olympic camps you've been a part of. I know we did we talked a little bit about 07, but we did the piece on Henry and that was 08. And I know you weren't living at the OTC, but I'm sure you spent a few camps out there, if not more than a few. And so you saw a lot of good stuff out there during that time.
Yeah, watching those guys train. I mean, seeing a guy like Burroughs now just be a pro at his craft. I mean, really, I think he raised the level of everyone, like learning what being a professional for the sport is.
Yeah.
So he said to gauge, and how do you gauge? I'm just saying, like, he's like you say, rubbing elbows. He's definitely rubbing elbows with those guys.
Oh, and Hardell Moore was just on, and he says this whole resurgence really started with Burroughs beating Sargouche in 2011, and I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, that quarterfinal match was a dirty, grimy match, pulling singlets, getting taped up. Like, I've probably watched that one more than any Burroughs match. And man, he's still going, and like he's still going. It's crazy. And we're coming up on the Worlds here, so it's gonna as a wrestling fan, coach, we got the Worlds, NCAAs, Olympic trials, and Olympics within the next 11 months. And if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does. And man, it's just so fun. And, as we look ahead to the college season, a lot of changes. Arizona State joining your conference. New rules. People are talking about changing seasons. I don't think we need a lot of changes. And I'm not one to sit here and tout the 3-point takedown. We don't need to talk about it. I'm just curious, what's your thought on like the direction where college wrestling's headed, and anything we could be doing different, or do you think we're pretty much on the right track?
I think it's competitive. I mean, competitive in the level of competition and how prepared guys are. I mean, it's as good as it's ever been. Now obviously you see all the realignment that's going on. I mean, we know what that's about. It's about football. It's about TV. It's about money.
Cash.
How do we keep, I mean, so you start to, how do we keep relevant, so to speak? I don't understand all the numbers. I've seen some of the numbers for, the NCAA tournament, that they're, maybe they're shrinking, is it, I know there's some proposal on dual stuff. Do I think that that's the best way to package our sport? I do. I think it's the most understandable. And that's, you look at what baseball's done right now. It's helped. I mean, I love baseball, and I'd watch baseball either way. I can go to the national tournament no matter what, but I know some people are like, well, we'll never have fringe fans. I don't know. I think that we can be a little bit stuck in our ways, right? I mean, we're stubborn SOBs, and almost sometimes to our detriment. But it's good to be tied to something and tied to some roots. But do I think that it's probably time to try something like that? I do. I think I know they're talking about maybe a proposal of even kind of trying it and seeing, and not really just rolling right into making that the national title.
Mm-hmm.
But moving the season, once they start these new rounds of bids and getting that stuff set, I don't know how you move the season. I've heard that they're maybe putting 2 dates together for these bids of these places. But once you get the bids for the next 4 or 5 years, you're kicking that 5 years down the road. It's something that we probably needed to deal with last year, but we're never going to get a consensus. I mean, we're wrestling folks, so sometimes you might have to take a little bit of risk of, okay, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And if we're going to take this on the information that we have and move forward. I think some of those Big Ten duels, the numbers are good. I know we're not going to compete with football, but I'm just saying, okay, what makes this, what continues to make us relevant? Because unfortunately, I do think that's what a lot of our administrators are looking at. I mean, and so I think we have to be a little bit smart and strategic with it. And is that the way to go? I don't know. I don't know any other ways to go. I just think you can package a duel. 2 hours, a lot of ups and downs. You can understand the scoring, and you could bring someone in and be like, they could be excited about it and be like, hell, I can't wait to come back, because that was so awesome, man. I had such a roller coaster ride.
Yeah. Well, people say that the NCAA doesn't matter, and I couldn't disagree more, because the only thing people are fans of are the alma mater. Outside of the diehards, the alma mater is what matter. The support of the college is what matter. Like, you saw 90,000 people went to that Nebraska volleyball game.
Yep.
I bet 80,000 don't know the players' names. They went because they love the Cornhuskers, right? Yep. Like, we cannot forget that the brand of the school is everything, and that's what people care about. And so I do think the dual championship would be fantastic. What could be more fun than a 32-team dual bracket? I know they're not talking about doing it that way, but do it over a couple weeks even. That'd be so fun. And, I picked up golf this summer. I'm terrible, and I want to get your golf pants. But even in golf, though, the biggest thing is the Ryder Cup. It's a team event. In golf's an individual sport. It's like, guys, there's nothing wrong with adding a team component. And I think to make it relevant, it's got to be before the NCAA tournament, not after. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. But I mean, there's no question that the brand of the school is everything. Like, how many UNI fans are there in Cedar Falls? I mean, there's not millions, but thousands. And they love the Panthers.
No, I mean, dude, why do you go to the U.S. Open and then? I mean, there's national champ against national champ consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something to the brand of the school that people identify with and get behind. Right. And we have to use that. I mean, we're crazy not to. I've went to the collegiate duels the last couple of years, and there was some incredible duels. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think about, and I hate to give other teams credit, but that Iowa State Cornell duel was that was nuts.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
So fun.
To watch, even from our perspective. Heck, we beat Ohio State there.
Huge.
There's things with duels that there's so many twists and turns. I think sometimes that can happen, and upsets, and just, I don't know. It's just there. I don't think that we can hurt our national tournament. I mean, people are going to come. It's still the national tournament. It's still going to be crowned and saying, you can make it something else.
Absolutely. I got 3 quick questions, Coach, and we'll let you go. I know you're not a man to sit long, so I appreciate you taking some time for us. Question 1, can you confirm that the Nike golf pants made a trip out to Jordan?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They got in the Jordan River. I pulled it up a little bit, but they dry really quick. Yeah, I'm telling you, you can do anything in them. You just got to, sometimes it just depends on if you got the button or so some of these have buttons, so that can break, but if they have the one that kind of, that kind of snaps together, that's probably a little bit better.
I love it. I just think it's funny. You love those pants so much. You take them everywhere, and it's It's a good tradition you got going. I think there's a sponsorship opportunity there, if at all possible. All right, second question, a little more serious, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but there's a program about 90 miles south of you guys that just for whatever reason will not take a dual meet. Can you confirm that the door is open to wrestle the Hawks whenever they want it?
Absolutely. I haven't said we go down there.
Let's make it happen.
We're not coming here, and the thing is then people will all, they'll start saying, well, you just stop talking about it. Like, I haven't talked about it at all. It's not like I'm bringing it up.
I'm bringing it up because we want it.
I think it's silly that we don't wrestle. I think there's a lot of teams that are pretty dang close that I think it's silly we don't wrestle. That's certainly one of them. I could get deeply involved in some of that stuff, and some of that stuff it's just not a time or place for it. We'd love to do it. It makes a lot of sense. It'd be great for the state of Iowa. It'd be great for the college wrestling. I can't tell you if it's ever going to happen, but for us, we got to just get better and win a lot more, and then we can make it. I don't know, maybe they got to wrestle us, I guess, but that's on us. We got to do a better job too. So,
unless the only way we could make it happen is dual championships, UNI puts the hurt on everyone, goes to the finals of the national dual championships, and if it just so happens to be the Hawks, so be it. But I just think it's a duel that would freaking sell tickets. It would be exciting, and because there's a little bit of drama, and everyone knows it's probably from something Virginia Tech related. I don't know what it is. And I don't really care to know on this podcast, but it just irks me that it hasn't happened. And I know you're all about it. So the Panthers will be anywhere they want to be for that duel to happen.
Yeah. I mean, heck, I know they had one in Kinnick a few years ago.
Yeah.
That was, we just said, you just saw the volleyball, right? I mean, the volleyball, that was incredible. I mean, dang, 90,000 fans. I mean, I'd tip my cap to those guys, to putting, volleyball in the spotlight like that.
Awesome.
That was really cool. So
we could even do an ode to Gable and do it at the UNI Dome because 97. Pretty much we should rename it the Gable Dome after 97.
Yeah, I don't know if they come up here, but I mean that was actually something that I'd thrown out. Like, hey, let's fill up this place.
I love it.
We go on and on, but
no.
It's pretty clear. We'll wrestle.
Love it. I love it. Last question, Coach. And this is something you said in a interview last year. I love the way you put this. And I just want you to kind of elaborate on what you meant by this. But you said there's no straight line to success. And curious what that means to you and kind of how you think about that.
I mean, just, dude, you're gonna have days you feel great. You're gonna have days you don't feel great. You're going to have a personal, okay, your girlfriend breaks up with you, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not always going to feel good and you might lose a match. There's all these things that are outside of your control that can impact you, that throw you off, that I see the straight line, like you see A to B, right? Okay, mm-hmm. I want to be a national champion. Well, it's not just right to that. I mean, you're going to go down in the ditch and you're going to have someone help to pull you out. But I mean, that's what I just tell guys, that if they think it's just going to be straight there, crazy. It's mm-hmm. not, and it never is for anybody, and that's okay. I think they got to understand that that's just part of this process. That's part of trying to be great at something. It's part of, stretching yourself. It's just not straight. So another way, just saying that, there's going to be adversity. There's going to be things thrown in your way, and then I say with that, then just connect the damn dots, right?
That's it.
So it's not a straight line. I've connected this dot to this dot to this dot. Now I finally make it to where I want.
It's important for someone to hear it. I'm thinking of the parents or even the wrestlers who listen to this, like to hear it from you, an Olympian, a national champion. Like, a lot of people, even yourself, probably would have thought that you would have been on every world team and every Olympic team from 01 on. And like, there's ups, there's downs, and you make it 07, you make it 08, so I just think it's cool to hear that perspective, and that you're taking that to your guys is really powerful.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even I was in that mix all those years, but then you finally break through. I think a little bit too is, everyone sees the finished product. So I'm saying everyone sees the end goal. They've watched the highlights on SportsCenter. They didn't see everything that led up to that. They didn't see all the days, all the nights, all the choices that were made to make that happen. All the things that they maybe missed or sacrificed, So that's what I'm saying. It is not that straight line and just clean. And you don't got any bumps along the road. Prepared for it, know it, understand it, and hopefully have some good people around you that will help you realize that and encourage you. And in the end, you end up trusting yourself. I mean, that's why I coach. To me, that's what wrestling's about. That's what coaching is about.
I love it, Coach. Thank you so much for coming on today, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and it's been since December of 2021 since we came out and did the interview for the Tony Davis stuff. So thanks so much for coming on, man, and best of luck to your guys and your boys this season.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate everything that you continue to do for the sport. And we say this will be 5 years almost. It's coming up on
October will be 5 years.
That's awesome. And keep telling the stories. I think that's what. The wrestling community is something special, right? I mean, you've been around it, and I just think about what's going on even with Sasso. How people step up. Our community is so ingrained and united for each other and love each other. Respect that we have for each other is so immense. And I think your podcast shed a lot of light on the individuals and what they've taken from the sport, and that doesn't mean it has to be an Olympian, right? You have guys from all walks of life that wrestled and that made them better, changed their lives. And so I appreciate you for the work that you're doing, man. You're doing a good job.
Thanks, Coach. I can't wait to see you this season, man. Best of luck to you guys.
Yep.
Take care.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wrestling Changed My Life. This episode was brought to you by our friends at CauseMatch. They're an online peer-to-peer crowdfunding platform. And if you're looking to supplement your fundraising efforts this wrestling season, go to CauseMatch.com/wrestling. That's CauseMatch.com/wrestling. We'll see you next time on a new episode of Wrestling Changed My Life.